The night is quiet along the Nile. The river moves slowly beneath a sky filled with pale stars. Warm air drifts over the dark water. Far away, a dog barks once and then falls silent again. A few lamps still glow inside mud brick homes, but most of the village has already settled into sleep. The day's heat has finally begun to loosen its grip on the earth. Palm leaves rustle softly. The river whispers against wooden boats tied along the shore. Somewhere nearby, a fisherman sleeps beneath a woven blanket. A baker rests beside a cooling oven. A farmer dreams of water channels and green fields. And not far from them all, another man sleeps lightly on a simple reed mat. He is not a soldier. He is not a priest. His name will never be carved into stone. Most people who pass him each day barely notice his work. Yet every morning, before many others have even opened their eyes, he rises to care for something that connects both sides of the Nile. He is a keeper of ferry ropes. Tonight, as the village sleeps beneath the stars, we quietly step into his world. His week is beginning. The first hint of dawn arrives long before the sun itself. The eastern horizon becomes slightly less dark. The stars begin to fade one by one. Cool air settles over the riverbank. The rope keeper wakes before the birds. His small home is made from mud bricks shaped by hand many years ago. The walls hold a little of the night's coolness. The floor beneath him is hard-packed earth smoothed by countless footsteps. For a few moments he remains still. He listens. The sound of breathing from family members nearby. The distant murmur of the Nile. The faint creaking of wood from boats rocking against their moorings. Another day has arrived. Slowly he sits upright. His joints feel stiff. Yesterday's work remains in his shoulders. His hands are rough from years of pulling ropes and handling wet fibers. Nothing about his morning feels hurried. Ancient Egypt wakes gradually. He stands and slips simple sandals onto his feet. Outside, the world remains mostly gray. A few other workers are already awake. A woman walks toward a bakery carrying grain. A young servant moves quietly through a courtyard carrying a water jar. Two donkeys wait patiently beside a wall. The rope keeper begins walking toward the river. The path is familiar. He has traveled it thousands of times. Dust rests across the ground. The scent of damp river mud grows stronger with each step. Soon the Nile appears before him. Even after years of seeing it every day, the sight remains comforting. The river is life itself. Water glides past in silence. Mist hangs low above its surface. The opposite bank appears as a faint shadow. The ferry waits near the shore. It is a simple vessel, wide enough to carry people, baskets, animals, and supplies from one side to the other. The rope keeper's attention immediately turns toward the thick line stretched across part of the crossing area. This rope is important. Without care, fibers weaken. Water slowly damages them. Sunlight dries them. Sand grinds into every strand. Each morning begins with inspection. His fingers move carefully along the surface. He checks for fraying. He examines knots. He watches how the rope sits against wooden posts. Tiny details matter. A weak section ignored today may become a serious problem tomorrow. The village depends upon reliable crossings. Farmers must reach fields. Merchants must transport goods. Messengers must travel. Families must visit relatives. The river connects many lives. And the rope keeper quietly helps maintain that connection. As dawn grows brighter, other workers arrive. Boatmen greet him with tired smiles. A fisherman unloads part of the night's catch. The smell of fresh fish briefly fills the air. Nearby, birds begin calling from reeds along the shoreline. The first sunlight appears. Golden light touches the tops of palm trees. Mud brick walls begin to glow softly. The day has officially begun. Soon passengers arrive. An elderly farmer carries a bundle of tools. A mother guides two sleepy children. Several laborers transport baskets filled with vegetables. The ferry starts moving. The rope keeper assists where needed. He steadies lines. He helps secure loads. He watches for signs of wear. Hours pass gently. The morning remains pleasant. Cool air lingers. The sun has not yet reached its full strength. People talk quietly during crossings. Many conversations are ordinary. Someone discusses crop conditions. Someone mentions a neighbor's new roof. Someone wonders whether next season's flood will arrive early or late. The rope keeper hears countless stories. Most drift past like the river itself. He rarely joins conversations for long. His attention often remains on the work. The rope. The boat. The water. The rhythm becomes familiar. Crossing after crossing. Arrival after arrival. Departure after departure. The Nile never stops moving. Neither do the people who depend upon it. As the morning grows older, the heat begins to rise. Shadows shorten. The cool comfort of dawn slowly disappears. Workers wipe sweat from their faces. The rope keeper feels sunlight warming his neck. By midday the riverbank becomes bright and almost white beneath the sun. The air feels heavy. Movement slows. Many travelers now cover their heads with cloth. Some seek shade whenever possible. The rope keeper pauses beneath a simple shelter built from wood and woven reeds. Its shade is thin but welcome. Nearby, a woman sells bread. The smell drifts through the hot air. Flat loaves rest upon woven trays. Their surfaces are golden and slightly cracked. The rope keeper purchases a small portion. He eats slowly. Simple bread. A few vegetables. Water from a clay jar. Nothing elaborate. Yet after hours of labor, the meal feels satisfying. Across the river, fields shimmer beneath sunlight. Farmers continue working despite the heat. From this distance they appear as tiny figures moving through green strips of cultivated land. The contrast is striking. Green fields. Golden desert beyond. The Nile between them all. Everything depends upon balance. Water and dry earth. Work and rest. Morning and night. The rope keeper understands this balance without needing to explain it. His life follows these rhythms every day. The afternoon becomes quieter. Fewer travelers cross during the hottest hours. Many people remain indoors. Workshops slow. Animals seek shade. Even birds seem less active. The river alone appears unchanged. Its surface continues drifting steadily beneath the sun. The rope keeper uses this quieter time to examine additional equipment. Wooden posts require attention. Knots must remain secure. Small repairs are easier than large ones. Patience saves labor later. His hands move methodically. Fiber against fiber. Knot against knot. Years of experience guide every motion. By late afternoon the sunlight softens slightly. A faint breeze returns. The village slowly becomes active again. More travelers appear. Children laugh while carrying water containers. Merchants move goods towards storage buildings. Workers return from fields. The ferry becomes busy once more. A donkey refuses to board at first. Its owner gently encourages it. Several passengers smile. The rope keeper waits calmly. Eventually the animal agrees. The crossing continues. Nothing feels dramatic. Most days are like this. Steady. Predictable. Useful. As evening approaches, the sky begins changing colors. Golden light stretches across the river. Long shadows return. The day's harsh brightness fades into something softer. The rope keeper feels tired now. His shoulders ache. His palms feel sore. Yet there is comfort in this familiar exhaustion. It comes from work completed. Crossings made safely. Equipment maintained properly. Another ordinary day nearly finished. The final passengers arrive. The final crossing ends. The ferry settles quietly near shore. Birds fly overhead toward evening resting places. Smoke rises from cooking fires throughout the village. The scent of baking bread fills the air once again. Families gather for supper. The rope keeper walks home. Dust clings lightly to his sandals. The sky deepens into orange and purple. Children play beside doorways. Neighbors exchange greetings. A potter finishes work at his wheel. A carpenter stores tools for the night. Every household follows its own evening routine. At home, a simple meal awaits. Bread. Vegetables. Perhaps a small portion of fish. Water cooled inside clay containers. The family eats together. Conversation remains quiet. Everyone is tired from the day's labor. Afterward, darkness slowly returns. The stars appear once more. The air cools. The sounds of work disappear. Only distant river noises remain. The rope keeper steps outside briefly before sleeping. The Nile reflects moonlight. Boats rest motionless. Palm trees sway gently. Tomorrow will look much like today. Another dawn. Another inspection. Another long series of crossings. Yet there is peace in repetition. Ancient life often moves in circles rather than straight lines. The same paths. The same tasks. The same river. The same sky. The rope keeper feels this deeply as he settles onto his reed mat. Outside, the village grows quieter. One lamp after another goes dark. Night spreads across the riverbank. The warm wind continues drifting over the Nile. And while most of Egypt sleeps beneath the stars, the great river keeps moving slowly through the darkness, carrying with it the beginning of another day waiting just beyond the horizon. Long before the sun reaches the horizon, the rope keeper wakes once again. The second day of the week begins in darkness. The village is still wrapped in sleep. Most homes remain silent. No smoke rises yet from cooking fires. No merchants call out to customers. No donkeys shuffle along the roads. Only the Nile is awake. Its water slides quietly through the darkness, following a path older than memory. The rope keeper sits for a moment and listens to the familiar sounds around him. A faint breeze moves through the doorway. Somewhere nearby, a sleeping bird rustles its feathers. The coolness of the night still lingers inside the mud brick walls. These peaceful moments before dawn are among his favorite parts of the day. Work has not yet begun. The heat has not yet arrived. The world feels calm and suspended between yesterday and tomorrow. He rises quietly and steps outside. Above him, countless stars fill the sky. The moon hangs low over the river. Its pale reflection trembles gently upon the water. The village looks different at this hour. Buildings that seem ordinary during daylight become soft shapes in the darkness. Palm trees appear taller. Pathways seem wider. Even familiar places carry a quiet mystery before sunrise. The rope keeper begins his walk toward the ferry landing. His sandals press softly into the dust. The ground still holds some of the night's coolness. A few other early workers appear along the road. A baker moves toward his ovens. A fisherman carries nets over one shoulder. A servant balances empty jars before making the first water collection of the day. No one speaks much. Morning conversations will come later. For now, silence feels natural. When he reaches the riverbank, he immediately notices that the water level has changed slightly. The Nile is always moving. Always shifting. Its height rises and falls throughout the seasons. Sometimes the changes are small. Sometimes they reshape entire sections of shoreline. Part of the rope keeper's job is understanding these subtle differences. He studies the river carefully. A small patch of mud now sits exposed near one landing area. Several reeds bend in a slightly different direction. The current moves with a little more strength than yesterday. These details matter. The river speaks quietly. Those who spend years beside it learn how to listen. He walks along the ferry equipment and begins his usual inspection. His hands move over thick rope fibers darkened by years of use. The rope feels slightly damp from the night air. He checks each section slowly. Patience has become a habit. Rushing often creates problems. Carefulness prevents them. The eastern horizon slowly begins to brighten. The stars fade one after another. Birds hidden among reeds begin their morning songs. The village stirs. Another day awakens beside the Nile. Soon the first passengers arrive. An elderly woman carrying baskets of onions. A young laborer transporting stone tools. A fisherman returning from work completed before sunrise. The ferry begins operating almost immediately. People step aboard. Goods are arranged carefully. The rope keeper helps secure everything before each crossing. Many travelers know him by sight. Some know his name. Others simply recognize the familiar figure who always seems present near the landing. Years of routine have made him part of the landscape. Children wave to him. Farmers greet him. Boatmen exchange brief words. His work may not bring great recognition, but it earns quiet trust. Trust grows slowly. Like a tree beside water. Like a rope strengthened by careful weaving. The morning becomes busier. More passengers arrive from both sides of the river. A merchant brings pottery packed carefully in straw. A farmer transports young goats. Several workers carry baskets filled with dates. The ferry moves steadily back and forth. The rope keeper notices everything. The weight of cargo. The balance of passengers. The condition of knots. The movement of water beneath the boat. His attention never fully relaxes. Even during ordinary crossings, unexpected problems can appear. A loose knot. A damaged plank. A sudden current. Years of experience have taught him to watch quietly. Most people notice only the journey. He notices the details that make the journey possible. As sunlight spreads across the landscape, colors slowly emerge. Golden sand. Green fields. Brown riverbanks. White birds lifting from the reeds. The Nile becomes brighter with every passing moment. Morning is one of the most beautiful times along the river. The air remains comfortable. The light feels gentle. Even hard work seems easier before midday. A group of farmers boards the ferry carrying tools over their shoulders. They speak about irrigation channels. Water is the center of every discussion. Without the Nile, fields would dry. Without careful management, crops would fail. Every person living beside the river understands this truth. The rope keeper listens quietly while helping arrange their equipment. One farmer mentions concerns about a damaged canal wall. Another speaks about a field of barley growing well this season. These conversations flow naturally. The river connects not only places but stories. Every crossing carries new pieces of village life. By mid-morning the sun grows stronger. The rope keeper feels warmth spreading through his clothing. Sweat gathers on his forehead. The cool hours are ending. Heat settles over the landscape. The ferry continues operating without pause. Crossing after crossing. Trip after trip. The routine never changes much. Yet small details make each day unique. A different passenger. A different conversation. A different pattern of clouds. Today, a group of scribes arrives carrying writing materials. Their clean linen garments stand out among laborers covered with dust. They speak carefully about records and measurements. The rope keeper watches them bored. He cannot read the symbols they write. Many workers cannot. Yet everyone understands the importance of scribes. Their records help organize grain, labor, taxes, and supplies. Ancient Egypt depends upon countless forms of work. Some jobs require strong hands. Others require careful writing. Each role supports the others. The scribes disappear toward the opposite shore. Soon another group replaces them. Builders transporting tools. Their arms are muscular from lifting stone. Dust covers their sandals. They look tired despite the early hour. Construction never truly ends. Walls require repair. Homes require maintenance. Storehouses require expansion. The work of building continues season after season. The rope keeper understands fatigue well. By midday, nearly everyone beside the Nile feels the weight of labor. The sun reaches its highest point. The heat becomes intense. Shadows shrink beneath feet. Air shimmers above stone surfaces. People move more slowly. Animals seek shelter. The rope keeper pauses beneath a shaded structure near the landing. The relief is immediate. Even a small patch of shade feels valuable now. Nearby, workers gather around clay jars filled with water. The containers keep water surprisingly cool. Condensation darkens parts of the clay surface. One sip brings comfort. Another restores energy. Simple pleasures matter greatly during hot afternoons. A breeze arrives from the river. It carries the scent of water and wet earth. For several moments everyone seems grateful. Even the smallest wind feels precious beneath the Egyptian sun. The rope keeper closes his eyes briefly. He listens. Water touching wood. Birds calling in the distance. Voices drifting from the ferry. The soundscape remains familiar and comforting. Soon work resumes. The afternoon stretches ahead. The busiest hours have passed, but crossings continue. Merchants remain active. Farmers continue traveling. Messengers arrive carrying information between settlements. One traveler appears with baskets filled with freshly baked bread. The smell spreads quickly through the warm air. Golden crusts catch the sunlight. Several nearby workers smile. Fresh bread has a way of improving even the hottest day. The rope keeper eventually purchases a small loaf. Its warmth remains trapped inside. He tears off a piece and eats slowly. The texture is soft. The flavor is simple. Nothing feels rushed. Meals beside the Nile often happen this way. A few moments of rest. A little food. Then work once again. As afternoon slowly approaches evening, the quality of light begins changing. Harsh brightness softens. Longer shadows appear. The heat eases slightly. People seem more energetic. Conversations become livelier. Children can once again be seen running along pathways. The rope keeper notices families returning home from fields. Bundles of harvested plants rest on shoulders. Tools hang from belts. Faces show signs of exhaustion. Yet there is satisfaction as well. The day has produced something useful. Food has been grown. Tasks have been completed. Life continues. The ferry becomes especially busy during this period. Workers return from across the river. Supplies move towards storage buildings. Animals are transported home. The rope keeper remains focused. Even after many hours, attention cannot fade. The river deserves respect until the very last crossing. The sun finally begins descending toward the western horizon. Its light turns golden. The Nile reflects brilliant colors. For a while, the entire landscape seems painted in warm shades of amber. Birds glide low over the water. Palm trees cast long shadows across the ground. The day feels slower now. Gentler. Even the passengers seem quieter. Many are simply tired. A full day of labor leaves little energy for conversation. The rope keeper understands. His own muscles ache. His hands feel heavy. His back is stiff. Yet he continues working until evening fully arrives. At last the final passengers step ashore. The ferry rests. The ropes are secured. Equipment is checked one final time. The river crossing will sleep until dawn. The rope keeper remains for a few extra moments. He watches the sunlight disappear. Darkness gathers gradually. The first stars return. The Nile grows darker with each passing minute. There is comfort in this transition. Day yields to night. Work yields to rest. Noise yields to silence. The village begins preparing evening meals. Smoke rises from cooking fires. The smell of grain, vegetables, and fish drifts through the air. Families gather. Doors close. Voices soften. The rope keeper starts his walk home. The road feels familiar beneath his sandals. Every step carries the pleasant weight of fatigue. A fatigue earned honestly through steady work. As he passes through the village, he notices warm light shining through small windows. People laugh softly inside homes. Children finish their meals. Neighbors exchange final conversations before sleep. Life continues in countless small ways. Most of these moments will never be recorded. No scribe will write about them. No monument will celebrate them. Yet they form the true rhythm of the ancient world. The rope keeper enters his home. A simple meal awaits. Simple comforts. Simple routines. Outside, the Nile continues flowing beneath moonlight. Tomorrow another dawn will arrive. Another line of travelers will gather. Another day of crossings will begin. For now, however, the riverbank grows quiet. The stars spread across the heavens. The warm desert wind drifts gently through the darkness. And the rope keeper settles once more onto his reed mat, listening to the distant whisper of the Nile as sleep slowly approaches. The third morning begins with a faint sound of wind moving through palm leaves. The rope keeper wakes before sunrise, as he always does. For a few moments he remains still beneath the fading darkness. The air feels slightly warmer than it did the night before. Even before stepping outside, he can sense that the day ahead may become especially hot. Ancient Egypt teaches people to notice small changes. The direction of a breeze. The smell of the air. The way birds begin their songs. The color of the eastern horizon before dawn. These quiet signs become familiar companions throughout a lifetime. He rises from his reed mat and stretches slowly. His shoulders remain sore from yesterday's labor. The muscles in his arms feel heavy. Years of handling ropes, lifting supplies, and standing beside the river have shaped his body in ways that cannot easily be seen. The work leaves its marks quietly. Not through glory. Not through recognition. Only through strength earned one day at a time. Outside, the village sleeps beneath a sky filled with fading stars. The moon has nearly disappeared. A soft gray light gathers low in the east. The rope keeper begins his walk toward the ferry landing. The pathway is cool beneath his sandals. A few dogs wander silently between buildings. Somewhere in the distance, a donkey shifts against a wooden fence. Otherwise, the world remains peaceful. The Nile appears ahead as a dark ribbon stretching across the landscape. Its surface reflects the first traces of dawn. Mist drifts above the water. Thin strands of white hover over the river like breath. The sight never grows old. Every morning offers the same river. Yet somehow it always looks slightly different. The rope keeper pauses for a moment near the shore. He watches the current. Listens to the water. Feels the cool air coming off the river. These moments belong only to the earliest workers. Most people are still asleep. Most homes remain silent. For a brief time, the Nile belongs almost entirely to fishermen, boatmen, bakers, and laborers preparing for the day ahead. Soon he begins his inspection. The ropes feel rough beneath his fingers. Tiny grains of sand cling to the fibers. The knots remain secure. The wooden posts stand firm. Everything appears in good condition. That is always welcome news. A day without repairs is often easier than a day filled with unexpected problems. As dawn brightens, activity slowly spreads across the shoreline. Birds gather among the reeds. Small boats emerge from the darkness. The first fishermen return with their catch. Their nets glisten with droplets of water. Silver fish flash briefly in the growing sunlight. The smell of river water mixes with the scent of wet reeds. Nearby, a young fisherman carefully untangles part of a net damaged during the night. The rope keeper watches him work. The task reminds him of his own responsibilities. Much of life beside the Nile depends upon maintaining simple things. Ropes, nets, boats, tools, walls, water channels. A small problem ignored can become a large one later. Patience saves effort. Care prevents hardship. The sun finally rises above the horizon. Golden light spreads across the river. The water transforms from gray to shimmering gold. Palm trees cast long shadows. Birds circle overhead. The day begins in earnest. Passengers soon arrive. An elderly farmer carrying a wooden hoe. Two women balancing baskets on their heads. A merchant transporting jars filled with oil. Several young workers heading toward fields across the river. The ferry starts moving steadily. Crossing after crossing. The rope keeper helps secure cargo and guide passengers aboard. Everything follows a rhythm established long ago. A ferry crossing may seem simple. Yet every successful trip depends upon many small actions performed correctly. The rope keeper rarely thinks about this directly. The knowledge lives in his hands. His movements have become instinctive. He notices tension in a rope without needing to measure it. He senses changes in the river's behavior without needing explanation. Years beside the Nile have taught lessons impossible to learn elsewhere. The morning passes peacefully. The sun climbs higher. Voices fill the landing area. Merchants discuss prices. Farmers discuss water levels. Boatmen discuss currents and weather. Children ask questions about everything they see. The rope keeper hears hundreds of conversations every week. Most disappear from memory by evening. Yet together they create the sound of ordinary life. A life often forgotten by history. Kings and temples may survive in stone. But daily conversations vanish like footprints in dust. The rope keeper sometimes wonders about this without putting the thought into words. He knows that his work matters. Not because it will be remembered, but because people depend upon it today. That is enough. As the morning grows older, the heat arrives more quickly than usual. The air becomes still. Clouds are nowhere to be seen. The sky stretches clear and endless above the river. Workers begin wiping sweat from their foreheads. Travelers seek shade whenever possible. The rope keeper drinks from a clay water jar. The water feels wonderfully cool. Clay has a simple magic. It keeps water fresh even beneath the strongest sun. Nearby, several laborers sit beneath a woven shelter. Their conversation moves slowly. No one has much energy for long discussions in this heat. Even speaking feels like work. The ferry continues operating. The river never closes. People must cross regardless of temperature. Life continues despite discomfort. This is another lesson the Nile teaches. The seasons change. The river rises and falls. Heat comes and goes. Work remains. By midday, the landscape seems to shimmer. The sunlight is almost blinding. Stone surfaces radiate warmth. Dust hangs motionless in the air. The rope keeper's clothing clings to his skin. His hands feel dry despite occasional contact with water. The heat settles over everything. Fields. Roads. Buildings. Animals. People. Everyone moves more slowly now. A group of farmers arrives carrying bundles of reeds harvested from marshy areas. The reeds will become useful materials. Roof coverings. Mats. Baskets. Perhaps even parts of boats. Nothing goes to waste. Ancient life depends upon using every available resource. The rope keeper helps load the bundles. The scent of fresh cut reeds briefly fills the air. It is a pleasant smell. Green. Earthy. Alive. Soon the ferry pushes away from shore once more. The current glides beneath the vessel. The passengers remain mostly quiet. Many simply stare at the water. The movement of the river has a calming effect. Even after years beside it, people still pause to watch. The Nile has a way of slowing thoughts. Its steady flow encourages patience. Its vastness encourages humility. Its presence shapes every aspect of life. The afternoon arrives. The hottest part of the day settles over the riverbank. Activity decreases. Many travelers postpone journeys until evening. The rope keeper uses the quieter hours to examine stored supplies. Several coils of replacement rope rest beneath a shelter. He inspects them carefully. Good rope is valuable. Making strong rope requires time and skill. Fibers must be twisted correctly. The strands must remain even. Weak sections can create dangerous failures. The rope keeper understands these details intimately. He has spent years studying rope not through books but through touch. His hands recognize quality immediately. He gently lifts one coil and studies it. The fibers smell faintly of plant material dried beneath the sun. Simple materials transformed through careful labor. Much of ancient Egypt functions this way. Mud becomes bricks. Flax becomes linen. Reeds become baskets. Stone becomes monuments. Human effort transforms the ordinary into something useful. As the afternoon slowly begins to cool, more travelers return. The riverbank becomes active again. A group of young workers boards the ferry carrying tools. They laugh quietly among themselves. Their energy contrasts with the older laborers nearby. Youth often recovers from fatigue more quickly. The rope keeper smiles slightly as he watches them. Perhaps he once carried himself with the same easy confidence. Years pass quickly beside the river. One season follows another. Floods come and go. Children grow into adults. Workers grow older. The Nile remains. Its presence measures time more reliably than any calendar. Toward evening, the sunlight softens beautifully. The harsh brightness fades. Golden colors return. The entire landscape seems to exhale. People move more comfortably. Animals emerge from shade. Birds become active once again. The rope keeper always appreciates this part of the day. The return of gentler air feels like a reward. A reward earned through enduring the afternoon heat. Families begin crossing the river. Some return from visiting relatives. Others transport goods purchased earlier in the day. Children sit quietly beside parents. Small baskets rest at their feet. The atmosphere feels peaceful. No one appears in a hurry. The day is winding down. As the ferry makes another crossing, the rope keeper gazes toward distant fields. Workers are finishing their tasks. From this distance they appear as tiny figures moving through strips of green. Smoke rises from villages scattered along the river. Cooking fires are being prepared. Bread will soon be baked. Evening meals will soon be shared. The thought feels comforting. Every household follows familiar routines. People gather. Stories are exchanged. Food is eaten. The burdens of the day are set aside. The rope keeper looks forward to these simple moments. The final crossings approach. The sky gradually shifts from gold to orange. Then orange deepens toward purple. The river reflects every color. Its surface becomes a moving mirror. Passengers grow quieter. Many seem lost in their own thoughts. Fatigue settles gently upon everyone. The rope keeper secures a final load of baskets. Checks the ropes again. Guides the ferry one more time. The routine remains steady. Reliable. Familiar. Eventually the last travelers step ashore. The workday ends. The ferry rests near the landing. The ropes are secured for the night. The river crossing grows silent. The rope keeper lingers beside the water. Only for a few moments. The evening breeze feels wonderful against his skin. The heat of the day finally begins to fade. Above him, the first stars appear. Their reflections shimmer faintly upon the Nile. He listens to the water. The sound is soft. Almost like whispering. Nearby, reeds sway gently. A bird settles into its nighttime resting place. The world is becoming quiet again. Slowly he begins the walk home. The village glows with warm lamplight. Families gather inside mud brick homes. The smell of fresh bread drifts through the streets. Children grow sleepy. Workers rest tired muscles. Doors close. Voices soften. Night spreads peacefully across the river valley. And beneath the ancient stars, while the great Nile continues its endless journey through darkness, the rope keeper returns home to rest, knowing that before long another dawn will arrive, another inspection will begin, and another day beside the river will quietly unfold. The fourth day begins with a deeper stillness than usual. The rope keeper wakes before dawn and notices immediately that the wind has disappeared. No palm leaves rustle outside. No cool breeze drifts through the doorway. The air feels calm and unmoving. For a moment he remains lying on his reed mat, listening carefully. The village is silent. The Nile can still be heard in the distance, its gentle flow continuing through the darkness as it always has. Some sounds never leave the ancient world. The river. The wind. Footsteps in dust. The creak of wooden boats. These quiet sounds form the background of countless lives. The rope keeper rises slowly. His body feels tired this morning. Not painfully tired. Only the ordinary heaviness that follows years of physical labor. His knees feel stiff. His shoulders ache slightly. His hands are rough and thick with old calluses. Such discomfort has become familiar. Most workers beside the Nile carry similar burdens. Farmers feel it in their backs. Builders feel it in their arms. Potters feel it in their wrists. The body remembers every year of labor. Outside, darkness still covers the village. Only a few faint lights glow through small windows. Some bakers have already started their ovens. Others will begin soon. The smell of smoke drifts softly through the air. The rope keeper begins his walk toward the river. The path feels almost empty. His sandals make soft sounds against packed earth. Ahead, the stars reflect faintly upon the water. The Nile appears calm. Very calm. Perhaps calmer than he has seen in several days. When he reaches the landing area, he pauses to study the river. The surface looks smooth beneath the fading moonlight. Only small ripples disturb the reflection of the sky. The sight feels peaceful. The river seems half asleep. For several moments he simply watches. No work yet. No travelers yet. Only water and silence. These moments before dawn often feel like a private gift. Soon enough, the day will become busy. Voices will fill the riverbank. The ferry will cross repeatedly. The heat will arrive. But for now, everything remains quiet. The rope keeper begins his morning inspection. His fingers move carefully along the ropes. The fibers feel slightly dry today. The still air has allowed the night's moisture to disappear quickly. He studies each knot. Checks every connection. Examines the wooden posts. Nothing appears damaged. Everything remains strong. That brings a sense of satisfaction. A well-maintained ferry crossing creates its own kind of peace. People can travel without worry. Goods can move safely. The day can unfold normally. The eastern horizon slowly brightens. Gray turns to pale gold. The stars fade. Birds begin calling from the reeds. The ancient rhythm continues. A fisherman arrives first. His boat glides quietly toward shore. Several fish lie inside woven baskets near his feet. The rope keeper greets him with a nod. No long conversation is needed. Many people who work near the river understand each other without many words. The fisherman begins unloading his catch. The smell of fresh water and fish mixes with the cool morning air. Soon others arrive. A farmer carrying tools. A merchant transporting jars. Several laborers heading toward distant fields. The ferry begins operating once more. The rope keeper settles into the familiar routine. Passengers board. Cargo is arranged. The ferry departs. Then returns. Then departs again. The pattern repeats. Again and again. The repetition feels almost soothing. Like the steady movement of the river itself. The rope keeper has spent so many years performing these tasks that his hands seem to know what to do before he consciously thinks about it. A basket shifts slightly. He notices immediately. A knot loosens. His fingers find it without hesitation. A passenger needs assistance stepping aboard. He is already moving to help. Experience creates its own kind of wisdom. Not the wisdom of scrolls. Not the wisdom of priests. A quieter wisdom. A practical understanding earned through countless ordinary days. The morning grows brighter. Sunlight spreads across the fields. The green strips of farmland beside the Nile begin to glow. Workers can be seen moving through the distance. From far away, they appear almost like tiny shadows crossing the landscape. The rope keeper often watches them during quiet moments. Every person is busy with something. Planting. Harvesting. Building. Cooking. Repairing. Carrying. Cleaning. The entire world seems to run on small acts of labor. No single task appears grand. Yet together they support a civilization stretching far beyond the horizon. A group of women arrives carrying woven baskets filled with grain. They move carefully. The baskets are heavy. Years of work have strengthened their posture. The rope keeper helps guide them aboard. The ferry rocks gently beneath the weight. The women thank him with warm smiles. Soon they are crossing the river. The Nile reflects the growing sunlight. Bright flashes dance across the water. The morning feels peaceful. The air remains pleasant. For now. The rope keeper knows the heat will come. It always comes. The only question is when. As the hours pass, activity along the riverbank increases. Donkeys arrive carrying goods. Merchants transport pottery. Children accompany parents on errands. The landing becomes lively. Voices drift through the air. Laughter appears now and then. A few travelers discuss recent harvests. Others speak about family matters. Some remain silent, lost in thought. The rope keeper hears fragments of countless lives. A daughter preparing for marriage. A son beginning work in a workshop. An aging parent whose health has become fragile. These stories flow through the ferry crossing every day. Most are never recorded. Most disappear with time. Yet for the people living them, they are everything. The sun climbs higher. The first signs of heat begin to appear. Shadows shorten. The ground grows warmer beneath sandals. The breeze remains absent. The stillness of the air becomes noticeable. Workers glance toward the sky. Everyone understands what such mornings often bring. A hot afternoon. Perhaps a very hot one. The rope keeper drinks water from a clay jar. The coolness feels refreshing. He pauses briefly beneath a reed shelter. Its shade provides welcome relief. Nearby, two elderly men discuss flood seasons from years long past. Their voices move slowly. Their memories stretch back decades. They speak of high waters, low waters, good harvests, difficult years. The rope keeper listens quietly while checking a coil of spare rope. The Nile measures life differently than people do. Many villagers remember years by floods rather than numbers. The year of abundant grain. The year of poor harvests. The year the river rose early. The year it arrived late. The river shapes memory itself. By midday the heat arrives fully. The air becomes heavy. Sunlight presses down upon everything. The riverbank grows quieter. Fewer travelers appear. Most people seek shade. Animals gather beneath trees and shelters. Even the birds seem less active. The rope keeper feels sweat running down his neck. His clothing clings slightly to his skin. Every movement requires a little more effort. This is the difficult part of the day. Yet it passes. Like all things. Slowly. Steadily. 1 hour follows another. He continues working. Checking ropes. Helping passengers. Watching the water. Maintaining the crossing. Nearby, a boatman sits beneath shade repairing part of an oar. Wood shavings collect around his feet. The smell of fresh wood drifts through the warm air. Not far away, a potter transports newly fired vessels. Their surfaces glow softly beneath the sunlight. Ancient life is full of craftsmen. Every object has passed through someone's hands. Every basket. Every tool. Every rope. Every loaf of bread. Labor exists everywhere. Often unseen. Often uncelebrated. Yet essential. The rope keeper understands this better than most. His own work is much the same. Few people think about the ropes when everything functions properly. That is the nature of such tasks. Success often appears invisible. Problems attract attention. Reliability does not. The afternoon moves slowly. The heat seems endless. The horizon shimmers. Dust hangs motionless above distant roads. The rope keeper occasionally glances toward the river. The water appears inviting. Cool. Refreshing. Yet work remains. The ferry continues operating. People still need crossings. Eventually, as happens every day, the sunlight begins to soften. The change is gradual. Almost unnoticed at first. Then suddenly everyone realizes the worst heat has passed. A breeze returns from the river. The relief spreads through the landing area. Workers straighten their backs. Conversations become more energetic. The entire riverbank seems to awaken again. Passengers begin arriving in greater numbers. Families returning home. Laborers finishing their shifts. Merchants completing business. The ferry grows busy. The rope keeper moves steadily from task to task. His fatigue remains. But evening energy has arrived. The end of the day is now visible. Golden sunlight stretches across the Nile. The water glows beautifully. Palm trees cast long shadows. The air smells faintly of dust and river mud. A flock of birds crosses overhead. Their dark shapes move against the bright sky. The rope keeper pauses briefly to watch them. Small moments like these often become the most memorable. Not grand events. Not dramatic occurrences. Simply a beautiful evening beside the river. The final crossings begin. Passengers board quietly. Most look tired. Faces reflect long hours of labor. Hands show signs of work. Dust covers sandals. The entire village seems ready for rest. As the sun touches the horizon, the sky becomes rich with color. Gold deepens into orange. Orange softens into purple. The Nile mirrors every shade. The river seems almost magical in this light. Yet it remains what it has always been. Water. Life. Movement. The rope keeper secures the ferry for the night. His hands perform the familiar motions. Check the knots. Secure the lines. Inspect the equipment. Everything appears ready for tomorrow. That brings quiet satisfaction. Another day completed. Another day without trouble. The riverbank grows still. Voices fade. Footsteps disappear toward the village. Cooking fires begin to glow. The smell of bread drifts across the evening air. Somewhere nearby, children laugh before being called indoors. The rope keeper starts walking home. The stars are already appearing overhead. One by one. Small points of light returning to the sky. The village welcomes him with warm lamplight and familiar sounds. Families gather around evening meals. Doors stand open to catch the cooler air. Neighbors exchange final conversations before sleep. The rope keeper feels pleasantly exhausted. His muscles ache. His feet are tired. His hands remain rough from rope and water. Yet there is comfort in such fatigue. The comfort of a useful day. A completed day. A day that quietly served others. As darkness settles fully across the Nile Valley, the great river continues its endless journey beneath the stars, and the rope keeper prepares once again for sleep, knowing that another dawn already waits somewhere beyond the horizon. The fifth morning arrives beneath a sky veiled by the faintest trace of dust. The rope keeper notices it almost immediately when he steps outside before dawn. The stars are still visible, but their light seems softer than usual. The horizon appears slightly blurred. Far away, where desert and sky normally meet in a clear line, everything looks muted. Such mornings are not uncommon beside the Nile. The desert is never far away. Its presence can always be felt beyond the green ribbon of life that follows the river. Sometimes the desert announces itself with great winds and drifting sand. Other times it simply sends a thin haze that settles quietly over the landscape. Today appears to be one of those gentler days. The rope keeper begins his familiar walk toward the river. The village remains mostly asleep. Only a few early workers move through the darkness. A baker passes carrying bundles of fuel for the ovens. A servant heads toward a public well with empty jars. Two fishermen walk silently toward their boats. Everyone seems wrapped in the quiet mood that exists before sunrise. The air feels comfortable. Not cool. Not warm. Simply calm. Above, the last stars fade one by one. The rope keeper reaches the riverbank and pauses. The Nile lies before him like a broad band of polished stone. Its surface reflects the pale light of approaching dawn. Small ripples move steadily through the current. The river never truly rests. Even in silence, it is always traveling. Always moving northward. Always carrying water from distant lands unseen by most people who live beside it. The rope keeper often wonders about those distant places. Not in great detail. Only occasionally. The river arrives from somewhere far beyond the horizon. Villages he will never visit. Fields he will never see. People whose names he will never know. Yet they are connected by the same water. The thought feels strangely comforting. He begins his inspection. The ropes appear strong. The wooden posts remain secure. Everything is in order. His fingers move carefully across familiar surfaces. The fibers feel rough and dependable. Each strand woven together with countless others. A single fiber can break easily. Thousands woven together become strong enough to guide boats and support livelihoods. The rope keeper has always appreciated this simple truth. Strength often comes from many small things working together. The eastern sky gradually brightens. A pale ribbon of gold appears above the horizon. Birds begin their morning songs. The first calls drift across the reeds. Soon more voices join them. The riverbank slowly awakens. A fisherman arrives first today. His boat carries only a modest catch. He shrugs when the rope keeper glances toward the baskets. Not every night produces abundance. Some nights the river is generous. Others are quieter. That is simply the way of things. The fisherman secures his boat and heads toward the market area. The rope keeper watches him disappear into the growing light. Soon the first ferry passengers arrive. A woman carrying fresh vegetables. A young boy accompanying his father. Several laborers heading toward construction work. The day begins as it always does. Steadily. Without hurry. Without ceremony. The ferry crosses the river. Returns. Crosses again. The rhythm settles over the morning. The rope keeper finds comfort in routine. There is no need to wonder what comes next. The next task always reveals itself naturally. A knot requires checking. A passenger needs assistance. Cargo must be arranged. The work unfolds one moment at a time. As the sun rises higher, more travelers appear. Merchants arrive carrying goods for nearby settlements. Several donkeys transport baskets packed with dates. A potter carefully moves newly finished vessels cushioned by straw. The ferry becomes busy. Voices fill the landing. The sound of ordinary life spreads across the riverbank. The rope keeper notices familiar faces. Many people cross the river several times each week. Some nearly every day. He has watched children grow into adults. Young laborers become skilled craftsmen. New families form. Old faces gradually disappear. Years beside the ferry provide a unique view of time. People come and go. The river remains. The morning light becomes stronger. The haze visible before dawn slowly lifts. The landscape sharpens. Green fields stretch alongside the Nile. Palm groves sway gently. Mud brick homes glow warmly beneath sunlight. Everything appears peaceful. A group of scribes arrives shortly after mid-morning. They carry writing boards and small containers of ink. Their linen garments remain remarkably clean despite the dusty roads. The rope keeper watches them board. One of the younger scribes looks nervous. Perhaps he is still learning. Perhaps he worries about making mistakes. The older scribes appear calm. Confident. Patient. Every profession requires years of practice. The rope keeper understands this well. No one becomes skilled overnight. Not a scribe. Not a builder. Not a farmer. Not a rope keeper. Experience arrives slowly. Like the river itself. The ferry carries them across. Soon another group replaces them. Several farmers transporting sacks of grain. The weight of the cargo causes the ferry to sit lower in the water. The rope keeper carefully supervises the loading. Balance matters. Every crossing requires attention. The farmers settle onto the deck while waiting. One of them speaks about his fields. The harvest appears promising this season. Others nod in agreement. Good harvests bring relief. Poor harvests bring worry. The Nile's behavior influences nearly every conversation. Even when people discuss other subjects, the river often finds its way into the discussion. Water is never far from anyone's thoughts. By midday the sun stands high overhead. The warmth grows stronger. Workers seek shade whenever possible. The rope keeper pauses beneath a simple shelter built from reeds and wooden poles. Nearby, several laborers sit together sharing bread. Their conversation drifts lazily through the air. Nobody speaks loudly. The heat encourages calm voices. A clay jar filled with water rests nearby. The rope keeper drinks deeply. The coolness feels refreshing. Simple pleasures become important during long work days. A cool drink. A patch of shade. A brief breeze from the river. These small comforts help carry people through difficult afternoons. The ferry remains active. Though fewer travelers appear during the hottest hours, movement never fully stops. Life beside the Nile continues regardless of temperature. A merchant arrives carrying folded linen cloth. Another transports jars of oil. A shepherd guides several goats toward the landing. The rope keeper helps organize everything. Years of experience have taught him how to manage crowded crossings efficiently. The animals board safely. The cargo remains secure. The ferry continues its steady work. The afternoon stretches ahead. The sunlight seems almost motionless. The air feels thick. Even the river appears slower beneath the bright sky. The rope keeper knows this feeling well. Many afternoons beside the Nile seem suspended in time. Hours drift by gently. Nothing dramatic happens. Nothing unusual occurs. Only the slow passage of ordinary life. And yet these ordinary moments form the true foundation of the ancient world. Thousands of workers. Thousands of families. Thousands of routines unfolding simultaneously along the river. Most will never be recorded. Most will never be remembered beyond a few generations. Still, they matter. Every loaf of bread. Every repaired roof. Every harvested field. Every ferry crossing. Civilizations rest upon such things. The rope keeper may never express these thoughts aloud. But somewhere within him, he understands them. The afternoon eventually begins to soften. A faint breeze returns. The relief is immediate. Travelers become more numerous. Voices grow livelier. Children once again appear along the riverbank. The day seems to awaken after its long, hot pause. A young mother boards the ferry with two small children. The younger child stares wide-eyed at the water. The older one asks endless questions. The rope keeper smiles quietly. Children often view the river differently than adults. Adults see work, fields, transportation, responsibility. Children see wonder, movement, reflections, birds gliding across the surface. Perhaps both perspectives are equally true. The ferry crosses smoothly. The children remain fascinated the entire journey. As afternoon gradually approaches evening, golden light spreads across the landscape. The fields glow softly. Palm trees cast long shadows. The river reflects the sky like polished bronze. The rope keeper feels his fatigue returning. His shoulders ache. His feet feel heavy. The familiar exhaustion of a long workday settles into his body. Yet there is satisfaction as well. The crossing has operated smoothly. The ropes remain secure. The equipment remains reliable. Another day has unfolded successfully. More workers begin returning from fields and workshops. The ferry grows busy once again. Farmers carry tools. Craftsmen transport supplies. Families head home. Everyone seems eager for the evening meal and the comfort of rest. The rope keeper continues helping passengers aboard. Checking cargo. Watching the river. Performing countless small tasks that keep everything running smoothly. The sun lowers toward the western horizon. The sky turns golden. Then amber. Then shades of orange. The river mirrors every color. The entire valley seems wrapped in warm light. A flock of white birds rises suddenly from the reeds. Their wings catch the sunlight. For a few moments they glow against the darkening sky. The rope keeper watches until they disappear. The final crossings begin. The air feels cooler now. More comfortable. The sounds of evening drift across the village. Cooking fires crackle. Voices call from doorways. Animals settle for the night. The rope keeper secures the ferry after the last passengers depart. His hands move automatically through the familiar routine. Knots checked. Lines secured. Equipment inspected. Everything ready for tomorrow. The riverbank slowly empties. Darkness gathers. Stars appear overhead. The Nile grows quiet once more. The rope keeper stands for a moment beside the water. The evening breeze touches his face. The smell of river mud and distant cooking fires mingles in the air. Somewhere across the water, a dog barks. Then silence returns. The ancient world settles gently into night. At last he turns toward home. The village welcomes him with warm lamplight shining through small windows. Families gather around evening meals. Children grow sleepy. Neighbors exchange quiet conversations. The rope keeper walks slowly through familiar streets. His body is tired. His mind is calm. Behind him, the Nile continues its endless journey beneath the stars, carrying moonlight upon its surface as another peaceful night settles over the river valley. The sixth day begins with the sound of distant oars moving through darkness. Before the first hint of dawn appears, the rope keeper opens his eyes and listens. The village remains asleep. Most homes are quiet. Cooking fires have not yet been lit. The roads are empty. Yet from somewhere out on the Nile comes the soft, rhythmic splash of wood entering water. A fisherman has already begun his work. Perhaps several fishermen. Their boats move silently through the darkness while the rest of the world still dreams. The rope keeper lies still for a few moments, listening to the faint sound. Splash. Pause. Splash. Pause. The rhythm blends with the gentle murmur of the river. There is something comforting about familiar sounds. After so many years beside the Nile, he can often identify activities without seeing them. A fishing boat. A cargo vessel. A ferry line under tension. The rustle of reeds. The cry of certain birds. Each sound belongs to a particular part of life along the river. Together they create a world that feels deeply known. At last he rises from his reed mat. The air inside the house is cool. Outside, darkness still covers the valley. A few stars remain overhead. The moon has already disappeared beyond the western horizon. Today feels especially quiet. Even the wind seems reluctant to disturb the stillness. The rope keeper steps onto the familiar path leading toward the river. The earth beneath his sandals feels firm and smooth. Years of footsteps have worn the path into the landscape. Farmers, boatmen, children, merchants, laborers. Generations of people have traveled these same routes. Some are remembered. Most are not. Yet their footsteps helped shape the world around them. The rope keeper reaches the riverbank just as the first pale glow appears in the east. The Nile stretches before him, calm and dark. Mist drifts across parts of the water. Small patches of white hover above the surface like thin clouds resting upon the river. Everything feels peaceful. For several moments he stands quietly and watches. The river at dawn always feels different from the river at midday. During daylight it becomes busy and practical. A place of work. A place of travel. A place of commerce. But before sunrise, it feels almost sacred in its stillness. Not because of temples. Not because of ceremonies. Simply because silence allows people to notice things they often overlook. The gentle movement of water. The changing colors of the sky. The way light slowly returns to the world. The rope keeper begins his morning inspection. His hands travel across familiar sections of rope. The fibers feel cool. A slight layer of moisture from the night air clings to them. Everything appears strong. Everything appears secure. The ferry has rested peacefully through the night. Soon it will begin another long day of service. The eastern horizon grows brighter. Gray becomes silver. Silver becomes gold. Birds awaken among the reeds. Their calls spread across the riverbank. A few small fish break the surface of the water before disappearing again. The river seems to stretch and awaken alongside the village. Soon the first workers arrive. A baker carrying sacks of grain. A fisherman returning with modest success. Several young laborers heading toward fields across the river. The ferry begins operating before the sun fully rises. The rope keeper helps guide passengers aboard. The routine feels familiar and comforting. Each action flows naturally into the next. A rope adjusted. A basket secured. A passenger assisted. The ferry departs. Returns. Departs again. The day begins to gather momentum. As sunlight spreads across the valley, colors emerge slowly from the fading darkness. Palm trees become green once more. Mud brick homes glow softly beneath the morning light. The river changes from black to blue and gold. The transformation happens every day. Yet it never feels entirely ordinary. There is beauty in repetition when viewed carefully. The rope keeper notices a young boy standing near the landing area. The child appears fascinated by everything. The ropes. The ferry. The water. The boats. He watches closely as passengers board. His eyes follow every movement. Perhaps one day he will work beside the river as well. Perhaps not. The future remains hidden. For now he is simply curious. The rope keeper remembers being young. Not every detail. Many years have passed. But he remembers watching older workers perform tasks that seemed mysterious at the time. How did they know which knot to use? How could they judge the weight of cargo so quickly? How did they understand the river so well? The answers came slowly. One day at a time. One season at a time. Knowledge often arrives quietly. The morning becomes busier. More travelers appear. A merchant transports jars filled with honey. Several farmers carry bundles of tools. A carpenter brings newly shaped pieces of wood across the river. The landing area fills with movement. Voices drift through the air. The rope keeper hears conversations about crops. About family members. About repairs needed on homes and storage buildings. Nothing extraordinary. Only the countless small concerns that occupy everyday life. These concerns may seem ordinary. Yet they matter deeply to the people discussing them. A leaking roof matters. A healthy harvest matters. A sick animal matters. History often remembers great rulers. The rope keeper knows nothing about such records. His world revolves around simpler things. And simpler things often determine whether daily life feels comfortable or difficult. The sun climbs steadily higher. The coolness of morning begins to fade. Warmth settles across the landscape. Workers remove extra layers of clothing. Travelers seek shade while waiting for crossings. The rope keeper drinks water from a clay jar. Its coolness brings immediate relief. Nearby, a group of women discuss bread prices at the market. One laughs softly at something another says. The sound drifts across the landing. Laughter is not rare here. Life can be difficult. Work can be exhausting. Yet moments of joy still appear. A conversation. A family gathering. A successful harvest. Fresh bread shared among friends. Small happiness often carries people through long days. The ferry continues moving steadily across the river. Back and forth. Back and forth. Its rhythm feels almost endless. The rope keeper watches the water carefully. A slightly stronger current has appeared today. Nothing dangerous. Nothing unusual. Just another reminder that the Nile is always changing. The river never repeats itself completely. Every day brings subtle differences. A shift in water level. A new pattern of movement. A different wind. Those who spend their lives beside the river learn to notice such things naturally. By midday the heat begins pressing down upon the valley. Shadows shrink. The ground grows hot beneath sandals. The air feels heavier. Many travelers slow their pace. Conversations become quieter. The rope keeper pauses beneath shade whenever opportunities arise. A woven shelter stands near the landing. Its shadow is narrow but welcome. Several laborers rest nearby. Their faces shine with sweat. Their clothing carries dust from roads and fields. No one complains. Complaints rarely change the weather. Instead they drink water and wait patiently for cooler hours. The rope keeper shares part of a simple meal. Bread. A few vegetables. Water. The food is plain. Yet after hours of labor, it feels satisfying. Meals beside the river are often uncomplicated. People eat what is available. What can be grown? What can be stored? What can be transported? Simple food supports demanding lives. After eating, he returns to work. The afternoon stretches ahead. The hottest hours arrive slowly. The sunlight seems almost motionless in the sky. The village becomes quieter. Even animals seek shelter from the heat. The ferry still operates. Though fewer passengers appear, some journeys cannot wait. A messenger crosses carrying important information. A merchant transports valuable goods. A family visits relatives in another settlement. Life continues. The rope keeper moves through each task with steady patience. Years of routine have taught him not to rush. The river rewards calm attention. Rushing often creates mistakes. Patience prevents many problems before they begin. As the afternoon advances, he notices dark shapes approaching from upstream. At first they appear small against the bright water. Gradually they become clearer. Several larger cargo boats. Their sails catch the breeze. Their hulls ride low in the water beneath heavy loads. The rope keeper watches them pass. Such boats often carry grain, stone, timber, or other valuable supplies. Their journeys may take days, sometimes weeks. The river serves not only villages but entire regions. Goods travel immense distances upon its waters. Watching the boats disappear downstream, he wonders briefly about the people aboard. Where have they come from? Where are they going? The questions drift through his mind before fading away. His own responsibilities remain here. At this crossing. At this stretch of shoreline. At this small but important point along the river. Eventually the heat begins to ease. The change arrives slowly but unmistakably. A breeze returns. Shadows lengthen. Birds become active once more. The entire valley seems to breathe easier. Travelers begin appearing in greater numbers. Workers return from fields. Craftsmen finish their daily tasks. Families make evening journeys. The ferry grows busy again. The rope keeper feels tired now. His shoulders ache. His hands feel heavy. Yet the cooler air helps. Work becomes easier when the sun begins its descent. Golden light spreads across the landscape. The Nile glows beautifully. The surface of the water reflects the sky like polished metal. Palm trees cast long shadows across the riverbank. Children point toward birds flying overhead. Parents gather baskets and tools. The day gradually approaches its end. The final crossings unfold peacefully. Passengers speak in quiet voices. Many appear lost in thought. The long day has left everyone tired. The rope keeper understands the feeling. Fatigue settles gently across the entire village each evening. Not a painful fatigue. A familiar one. The kind earned through honest work. The sun finally sinks below the horizon. Colors linger briefly in the western sky. Then darkness begins its slow return. The rope keeper secures the ferry for the night. His hands perform each task carefully. Nothing is overlooked. Tomorrow's work depends upon today's preparation. The ropes are checked. The lines are secured. The landing is left in good order. Only then does he allow himself to relax. The riverbank grows quiet. The last travelers disappear into the village. Cooking fires glow in the distance. The smell of bread and roasted vegetables drifts through the evening air. Above, the first stars appear. One by one. Just as they have every night for countless generations. The rope keeper stands beside the Nile for a final moment. The water whispers softly against the shore. A cool breeze touches his face. The day's labor is finished. Night has arrived once more. And beneath the endless stars of ancient Egypt, the great river continues its patient journey through darkness, carrying the peaceful sounds of the valley into another quiet evening. The seventh day begins with a faint coolness lingering over the Nile Valley. The rope keeper wakes before dawn, as he always does, but today there is a different feeling in the air. Not a dramatic change. Only something subtle. The kind of difference that most travelers might never notice. The air feels slightly fresher. The breeze carries a little more moisture from the river. The darkness itself seems softer. For a few moments he remains still on his reed mat, listening. A distant owl calls once. Then silence returns. The village sleeps peacefully. Nearby, family members breathe slowly in their sleep. Outside, the stars continue shining above the valley. The rope keeper rises quietly and steps into the cool pre-dawn darkness. The earth beneath his sandals feels comfortable. Not cold. Not warm. Simply pleasant. He begins his familiar journey toward the ferry landing. Every stone. Every bend in the path. Every palm tree. All are known to him. Years of repetition have made the route feel almost like an extension of his own home. There is comfort in such familiarity. The world changes constantly in small ways. Children grow older. Buildings require repairs. Flood seasons come and go. Yet certain paths remain. Certain routines endure. The rope keeper appreciates these steady things. They provide a sense of order. A quiet structure beneath the flow of everyday life. As he approaches the river, the scent of water becomes stronger. The Nile appears gradually through the darkness. Its broad surface reflects countless stars. The river seems endless. Even after a lifetime beside it, its size still inspires a quiet sense of wonder. Not excitement. Not amazement. Something gentler. A feeling of respect. The Nile asks for respect. It provides life. It nourishes fields. It carries boats. It supports villages. Yet it also reminds people of their dependence upon forces larger than themselves. The rope keeper pauses near the shore. The river flows silently before him. Mist drifts across the water. Thin ribbons of white move lazily above the surface. The sight feels peaceful enough to belong inside a dream. Soon the first hints of dawn appear. A faint gray light touches the eastern horizon. Birds begin to stir among the reeds. The world slowly awakens. The rope keeper starts his morning inspection. His hands move across the ropes with practiced confidence. Every strand receives attention. Every knot is examined. The work never changes. And because it never changes, it remains important. Routine can sometimes appear ordinary. Yet routine prevents problems. Routine creates reliability. The villagers who cross the ferry each day trust that it will be ready. That trust begins here, in these quiet pre-dawn inspections. Everything appears sound. The ropes remain strong. The wooden posts stand firm. The ferry rests exactly as it should. The rope keeper feels satisfied. A well-maintained crossing often passes unnoticed. That is perfectly acceptable. Some of the most important work in the world attracts little attention. As dawn spreads across the valley, more workers begin arriving. A fisherman carrying damp nets. A baker transporting sacks of grain. Several farmers heading toward distant fields. The landing slowly fills with life. Voices drift through the cool air. Greetings are exchanged. Questions are asked. News is shared. The ferry begins its daily rhythm. Passengers board. Cargo is arranged. The vessel pushes away from shore. The rope keeper watches carefully. The river appears calm this morning. Only small ripples move across its surface. The crossing proceeds smoothly. Soon the ferry returns. Then departs again. And so another day unfolds beside the Nile. The morning remains pleasant. The cooler air lingers longer than usual. Many travelers seem grateful. Several mention the weather while waiting near the landing. The rope keeper listens quietly. Weather may seem like a simple topic. Yet for people who depend upon fields, livestock, and river travel, it matters greatly. A change in wind can affect boats. A change in water levels can affect crops. The natural world influences nearly every part of life. A group of farmers boards the ferry carrying wooden tools polished smooth by years of use. Their hands tell stories of labor. Calluses. Scratches. Sun-darkened skin. The rope keeper notices such details automatically. Working people recognize the signs of work in one another. No words are necessary. The ferry carries them across. As it moves through the morning light, the river reflects brilliant shades of gold. Birds skim low across the surface. A fish leaps briefly from the water before disappearing again. The scene lasts only a moment. Then the river returns to calm. Many beautiful things beside the Nile are temporary. A reflection. A breeze. A flock of birds crossing the sky. Part of their beauty comes from their briefness. The rope keeper has learned to appreciate such moments without trying to hold onto them. The morning grows busier. Merchants arrive transporting pottery. Servants carry supplies between settlements. Craftsmen move tools and materials. The landing area becomes lively. Children accompany parents. Donkeys wait patiently beside cargo. Voices overlap in dozens of conversations. The rope keeper moves steadily through the activity. Helping here. Adjusting a rope there. Guiding passengers aboard. Checking equipment. Everything happens at a comfortable pace. No one rushes unnecessarily. The river encourages patience. There is little reason to hurry when crossings take the time they take. The sun climbs higher. The coolness gradually fades. Warmth spreads across the valley. Workers begin seeking patches of shade whenever possible. The rope keeper drinks from a clay jar and wipes sweat from his brow. The day is becoming hotter. Still, compared to some afternoons, it remains manageable. A gentle breeze occasionally drifts across the water. Each time it arrives, conversations pause briefly as people enjoy the relief. Simple pleasures often feel strongest when earned. Shade feels wonderful after standing in sunlight. Cool water feels wonderful after hours of labor. Evening feels wonderful after a long day of work. The rhythm of contrast shapes life beside the Nile. Near midday, a larger cargo vessel passes the crossing. Its sail catches the wind. Its hull rides low beneath a heavy load. Passengers waiting at the landing stop to watch. Large boats always attract attention. They hint at distant places. Distant markets. Distant villages. Perhaps even distant cities. The rope keeper follows the vessel with his eyes until it disappears downstream. Then he returns to his work. The ferry requires attention. The ropes require attention. The present moment requires attention. Dreaming about distant places may be pleasant, but the crossing depends upon careful hands here and now. By midday the heat settles fully across the valley. Shadows become short. The sunlight turns bright and powerful. The landing grows quieter. Fewer travelers appear. Most people choose to rest whenever possible. The rope keeper sits beneath shade for a short meal. Bread. A few dates. Water. Simple food. Reliable food. Food that has sustained generations. Nearby, several laborers share stories from previous flood seasons. Their voices move slowly through the warm air. One remembers a particularly high flood many years ago. Another remembers rebuilding irrigation channels after heavy water damaged them. Such memories become part of village life. People measure time through seasons, harvests, and floods. Years become attached to events. The year of strong crops. The year of poor fishing. The year of abundant water. The Nile shapes memory as surely as it shapes the land itself. The afternoon arrives. Heat shimmers above the riverbank. Dusty roads appear almost white beneath the sunlight. The rope keeper continues working through the slower hours. A merchant crosses with jars of oil. A shepherd transports several sheep. A family visits relatives across the river. The crossings continue. Perhaps not as frequently, but steadily. Always steadily. The rope keeper's movements remain calm and efficient. There is no wasted effort. Years of experience have taught him exactly how much energy to spend on each task. Older workers often move this way. Not faster. Not slower. Simply wiser. They understand that strength must last the entire day. As afternoon gradually softens, the valley seems to awaken once more. The worst heat begins to retreat. Birds return to the reeds. Children reappear along pathways. Travelers become more numerous. The landing grows busy again. The rope keeper feels fatigue gathering in his shoulders. This has been a long week. Every day has begun before dawn. Every day has ended after sunset. His hands have handled countless ropes. His feet have traveled the same paths repeatedly. His body feels the weight of accumulated labor. Yet there is satisfaction within that tiredness. The kind of satisfaction that comes from useful work completed consistently. The evening light arrives. Golden sunlight stretches across the Nile. The water glows softly. Palm trees cast long shadows across the shore. The entire valley seems calmer, quieter, more reflective. Families begin returning home. Workers leave fields. Craftsmen close workshops. Cooking fires are prepared. The scent of bread soon drifts across the air. The rope keeper continues assisting passengers during the final crossings. Many look tired. Some carry tools. Others carry baskets. A few simply carry the weight of a long day. The ferry transports them all. One final journey. Then another. Then another. Until eventually the last crossing arrives. The rope keeper secures the ropes carefully. His hands move through familiar motions practiced thousands of times before. The ferry settles into its resting place. The landing grows quiet. The day's work is finished. The sun disappears beyond the horizon. Colors fade slowly from the sky. Orange becomes purple. Purple becomes deep blue. The first stars emerge overhead. The rope keeper remains beside the river for a moment. The evening breeze feels cool against his skin. The water whispers softly along the shore. Somewhere in the distance, a boatman sings quietly while securing his vessel for the night. The sound drifts across the darkening water, then fades away. Night settles gently over the Nile Valley. The village glows with warm lamplight. Families gather inside mud brick homes. Meals are shared. Stories are exchanged. Children grow sleepy. The rope keeper turns toward home. His body is weary. His mind is calm. Behind him, the Nile continues its endless journey beneath the stars, carrying moonlight upon its surface as another peaceful ancient night unfolds beside the river. Another week begins before the first light touches the eastern horizon. The rope keeper wakes in darkness. For a moment he is unsure whether he has been asleep for many hours or only a short while. The sounds of the night remain unchanged. The same distant murmur of the Nile. The same gentle shifting of air through narrow village streets. The same occasional call of a bird waking earlier than the rest. Then his eyes adjust to the darkness, and he remembers. A new day has arrived. Slowly he sits upright on his reed mat. The familiar stiffness greets him. His shoulders feel heavy. His hands ache slightly from years of gripping wet ropes and rough fibers. His knees protest as he stands. These sensations no longer surprise him. Many workers in the village begin each morning this way. The body remembers labor. It keeps a quiet record of every season. Outside, the sky remains dark. Countless stars stretch across the heavens. The air feels pleasantly cool. This hour before dawn is often the most comfortable part of the entire day. The heat waits somewhere beyond the horizon, not yet awakened. The rope keeper steps into the sleeping village. Mud brick walls cast long shadows beneath the starlight. Doorways remain closed. Cooking fires are dark. Most people continue dreaming. Perhaps a farmer dreams of green fields. Perhaps a fisherman dreams of full nets. Perhaps a child dreams of adventures along the river. The rope keeper does not spend much time wondering. His thoughts remain simple this early in the morning. There is work to do. The ferry must be inspected. The river must be watched. The crossing must be prepared. His feet follow the familiar path toward the Nile. The route feels almost automatic. Years of repetition have carved it deeply into memory. Even in darkness he could likely find his way. The river appears ahead. Wide. Quiet. Patient. The Nile never seems hurried. Its water moves steadily through the darkness, carrying reflections of the stars. Mist drifts across parts of the surface. The world feels suspended between night and morning. The rope keeper pauses near the shore. He listens. Water brushing gently against wood. The distant creak of a moored boat. The faint rustle of reeds. Nothing else. No crowds. No merchants. No busy conversations. Only the river. Only silence. These quiet moments belong to him. Soon enough the day will become full of voices and activity. For now, he enjoys the stillness. Eventually he begins his inspection. His fingers travel carefully along the ropes. The fibers feel cool and slightly damp from the night air. Each knot receives attention. Each connection is checked. The routine rarely changes. Yet it never feels unnecessary. Ropes are like friendships. They remain strong when cared for. Neglect weakens them. Attention preserves them. The rope keeper has learned this through years of observation. A ferry crossing depends upon many small acts of maintenance. Most travelers never notice them. That is perfectly acceptable. The purpose of his work is not recognition. The purpose is reliability. The eastern sky slowly brightens. Gray spreads across the horizon. Birds begin singing among the reeds. The world awakens one sound at a time. A fisherman arrives carrying freshly mended nets. A baker passes with sacks of grain balanced across a donkey. Two laborers exchange quiet greetings while waiting for the first crossing. The day begins gently. The ferry starts operating shortly after sunrise. Golden light spills across the water. The river transforms from silver gray to bright gold. The sight remains beautiful despite its familiarity. The rope keeper helps guide passengers aboard. A mother carrying vegetables. An elderly farmer with tools. Several merchants transporting pottery. The ferry pushes away from shore. The crossing begins. The water beneath the vessel moves with calm confidence. Passengers stand quietly. Some watch the river. Others think about the work waiting for them across the water. The rope keeper notices both types. Some people are always looking ahead. Others take time to observe the present moment. The river seems to encourage observation. Its steady movement invites reflection. As morning progresses, activity increases. The landing fills with voices. Donkeys wait beside cargo. Children accompany parents. Workers hurry toward fields and workshops. The rope keeper remains busy. Every crossing requires attention. A basket must be secured. A rope must be adjusted. A passenger needs assistance. The tasks are never difficult individually. Their challenge comes from repetition. From doing them well hundreds of times. Day after day. Year after year. The morning sun climbs steadily. Its warmth spreads across the valley. Palm trees cast shorter shadows. The cool air begins to disappear. The rope keeper drinks from a clay water jar. The water feels wonderfully refreshing. Nearby, several merchants discuss prices in the marketplace. One hopes for better sales this week. Another worries about transportation delays farther upriver. Business concerns sound remarkably similar regardless of generation. People have always worried about supplies, timing, and uncertainty. The details change. The concerns remain. A group of stone workers arrives near mid-morning. Dust covers their clothing. Their hands are rough and powerful. Several carry tools over their shoulders. The rope keeper watches them board the ferry. He imagines the long hours they spend beneath the sun shaping stone. Every profession carries its own difficulties. Every profession demands something from the body. The ferry carries them safely across. Soon another group replaces them. Then another. The rhythm continues. The sun reaches its highest point. Heat settles over the Nile Valley. The air grows heavy. Movement slows. The rope keeper feels sweat forming along his neck. Many travelers seek shelter before continuing their journeys. Shade becomes valuable. Even a narrow strip of shadow can feel precious during midday. The rope keeper sits briefly beneath a reed shelter. Nearby, a farmer shares part of his lunch with a younger worker. Bread. Dates. A small piece of dried fish. Simple food. Simple kindness. Such moments happen often. People depend upon one another more than they sometimes realize. A ferry crossing depends upon ropes. Fields depend upon water. Families depend upon labor. Villages depend upon cooperation. Life beside the Nile is woven together much like the ropes the keeper inspects each morning. Countless strands creating strength. The afternoon arrives slowly. The brightest sunlight reflects from the river. The water almost seems to glow. The rope keeper continues his work despite the heat. Passengers still arrive. Goods still require transportation. The ferry continues moving steadily across the Nile. A messenger crosses carrying rolled documents. A shepherd guides several goats aboard. A merchant transports baskets filled with figs. The day unfolds through countless small journeys. Each traveler carries a purpose. Each crossing becomes part of a larger story. Most stories remain untold. Yet they shape the world all the same. As the afternoon progresses, clouds appear far in the distance. Only a few. Thin and scattered. The rope keeper notices them immediately. Clouds always attract attention in Egypt. Not because they are rare, but because they change the appearance of the sky. The clouds drift slowly across the horizon. Their shadows briefly touch distant fields. Then move on. The afternoon heat begins to soften. A breeze arrives from the river. Travelers smile. Workers straighten their backs. The entire landing seems to breathe more easily. The rope keeper welcomes the change. His body feels tired. The cooler air helps. A group of children gathers near the shore while waiting with their parents. One throws a small pebble into the water. Another points excitedly toward a bird gliding overhead. The rope keeper watches them briefly. Children often notice things adults overlook. The shape of clouds. Patterns in the water. Interesting stones. Strange insects. The world remains new to them. There is something peaceful about witnessing such simple curiosity. The evening approaches. Golden light returns to the valley. The harsh brightness of midday fades into softer colors. Palm trees cast long shadows once again. The river glows beneath the setting sun. The rope keeper feels the familiar weight of fatigue. Not unpleasant. Not overwhelming. Simply the natural result of a long day's labor. The ferry grows busy with returning workers. Farmers carry tools home. Craftsmen transport supplies. Families gather belongings after visiting relatives. Everyone seems eager for evening meals and rest. The rope keeper assists them all. One final crossing. Then another. Then another. The sun descends lower. Orange light spreads across the water. Birds fly toward nesting places. Smoke begins rising from village cooking fires. The scent of baking bread drifts across the riverbank. The day nears its end. At last the final passengers step ashore. The rope keeper secures the ferry carefully. His hands perform familiar motions without hesitation. Check the knots. Inspect the lines. Prepare everything for tomorrow. The routine brings satisfaction. A day completed properly feels rewarding. The landing gradually empties. Voices fade. Footsteps disappear into the village. Darkness gathers across the Nile. The first stars appear overhead. The rope keeper remains beside the water for a moment. The evening breeze cools his skin. The river whispers softly against the shore. Across the water, lamps glow warmly inside distant homes. Families are gathering. Meals are being shared. Stories are being told. The rope keeper turns toward home. His sandals press gently into the dusty path. Behind him, the Nile continues flowing beneath the stars, carrying the reflections of countless lights as another peaceful night settles over the ancient valley. The next morning begins with the scent of damp river mud carried gently through the darkness. The rope keeper wakes before dawn, just as he has on thousands of mornings before. For a few quiet moments he remains lying still, listening to the sounds of the sleeping village. A faint breeze slips through the doorway. Somewhere outside, a donkey shifts its weight and exhales softly. Farther away, beyond the mud brick homes and narrow pathways, the Nile continues its endless journey through the night. The sound of the river is never loud. It does not demand attention. It simply exists. Steady. Patient. Reliable. Like the rope keeper himself. The thought brings a small feeling of comfort. Slowly he rises and prepares for another day. The darkness outside feels gentle. Stars still fill much of the sky. Their reflections shimmer faintly upon the river. The air remains cool enough that each breath feels refreshing. Before long, the heat will return. But for now, the valley belongs to the quiet hours. As he walks toward the ferry landing, he notices small details that often go unseen during busy daylight hours. The shape of a palm tree against the stars. The texture of packed earth beneath his sandals. The way moonlight catches the edge of a distant roof. The village seems larger at night. More mysterious. More peaceful. Every familiar place gains a different character beneath darkness. When he reaches the riverbank, he finds the Nile wrapped in a thin layer of mist. The water and sky seem almost connected. The horizon has disappeared. Only shades of gray and silver remain. The rope keeper pauses for a moment and watches. The scene feels dreamlike. If a traveler arrived from far away, they might think the world had become nothing but water and sky. Gradually, however, the eastern horizon begins to brighten. The separation returns. Land becomes visible. Reeds emerge from the mist. The outlines of boats sharpen. The world slowly rebuilds itself with the arrival of light. The rope keeper begins his inspection. His hands know exactly where to go. The ropes feel familiar beneath his fingers. Strong. Rough. Dependable. He examines every section carefully. Years have taught him that problems rarely appear all at once. Most begin small. A worn fiber. A weakened knot. A damaged post. Attention prevents trouble. Patience prevents accidents. The morning inspection remains one of the most important parts of his day. By the time the first birds begin singing, everything is ready. The ferry waits quietly beside the shore. The ropes are secure. The landing is prepared. Another day can begin. The first passengers arrive shortly after sunrise. An elderly woman carrying woven baskets. A young man transporting tools. Two brothers leading a donkey loaded with sacks of grain. The ferry crossing begins. Water ripples gently around the vessel. The rope keeper helps organize passengers and cargo. Everything moves smoothly. The routine has been practiced so many times that it feels almost effortless. Yet he knows how much effort truly lies beneath that appearance. Years of experience create smoothness. Years of repetition create confidence. The morning unfolds peacefully. Sunlight spreads across the Nile. The river glitters beneath golden rays. Birds circle above the reeds. Fishermen return from their work. Merchants begin their journeys. Farmers head toward fields. The valley awakens completely. The rope keeper watches people come and go. He often notices patterns. Certain faces appear every morning. Others only occasionally. Some travelers always arrive early. Others seem to hurry at the last moment. Human habits reveal themselves over time. A person who works beside a ferry learns many things simply through observation. One regular passenger is a potter who transports finished vessels several times each week. The rope keeper has watched him for years. The man always carries his pottery carefully. Always checks every piece before boarding. Always thanks those who help him. Small habits repeated over many years become part of a person's identity. The rope keeper appreciates such consistency. Perhaps because his own life is built upon it. As the morning grows brighter, more travelers arrive. A group of women carrying baskets of vegetables. Several laborers heading toward a construction project. A merchant transporting folded linen cloth. The landing becomes busy. Voices fill the air. Donkeys bray occasionally. Children ask questions. The ferry moves back and forth across the Nile. Again. And again. And again. The rhythm never feels hurried. The river sets the pace. Everything unfolds according to its flow. Near mid-morning, the rope keeper notices a small repair that requires attention. One section of rope shows slightly more wear than expected. Nothing serious. Nothing dangerous. But worth addressing. During a quieter moment between crossings, he carefully works on the area. His fingers move with practiced skill. The repair takes time. Not much. But enough to remind him why constant attention matters. Ropes, like many things in life, last longer when cared for regularly. Neglect turns small issues into large ones. The lesson applies far beyond ferry work. Though the rope keeper rarely thinks about such ideas directly, years of experience have taught them nonetheless. The sun climbs higher. The coolness of morning begins to disappear. Warm air settles across the valley. Workers seek water more frequently. Shade becomes more valuable. The rope keeper drinks deeply from a clay jar. The water feels cool against his throat. Nearby, a farmer sits beneath a shelter while waiting for the next crossing. His sandals are coated with dust. His clothing carries traces of dried mud from irrigation channels. The signs of labor are visible everywhere. Life beside the Nile demands effort. Yet it also rewards effort. Fields produce grain. Gardens produce vegetables. Fishing nets produce food. Hard work creates comfort. Perhaps not luxury, but comfort. And comfort is enough for many people. By midday, the heat has fully arrived. The river reflects brilliant sunlight. The air seems almost motionless. Even conversations become quieter. People conserve energy during the hottest hours. The rope keeper sits beneath shade whenever possible. A short rest. A few bites of bread. A handful of dates. Water. Then work again. The rhythm of the day resembles the rhythm of rowing. Effort. Pause. Effort. Pause. The balance matters. Too much effort leads to exhaustion. Too much rest leaves work unfinished. Experience teaches moderation. The afternoon passes slowly. A cargo boat travels downstream carrying sacks of grain. Its crew moves with calm efficiency. The rope keeper watches it disappear around a bend in the river. For a moment he imagines the places it may visit. Settlements farther north. Markets he has never seen. Landing areas with different faces but similar routines. The Nile connects countless communities. Each village feels unique. Yet all share certain similarities. The same dependence on water. The same respect for seasons. The same cycle of work and rest. The same need for cooperation. The afternoon heat eventually begins to soften. A breeze returns. The relief spreads across the riverbank. Travelers seem more cheerful. Children become more active. Birds reappear from sheltered areas. The valley awakens from its midday stillness. The rope keeper notices the change immediately. Even his own fatigue feels lighter. The final hours of daylight often carry a special feeling. Work is still happening. Yet the promise of evening is visible. The day is no longer stretching endlessly ahead. Instead, it is gradually folding itself toward rest. The ferry grows busy again. Workers return from fields. Craftsmen finish their daily tasks. Families travel home. The landing fills with familiar movement. The rope keeper helps a farmer load several baskets of onions. Then assists an elderly passenger stepping aboard. Then secures a collection of pottery jars. The tasks change constantly. The purpose remains the same. Help people cross safely. That is enough. As the sun approaches the horizon, the entire landscape transforms. Golden light washes across the valley. Palm trees cast long shadows. The Nile reflects warm colors that seem to change every moment. The rope keeper always enjoys this time of day. The heat fades. The light softens. The pace slows. Even conversations seem quieter. More thoughtful. A flock of birds passes overhead, flying toward distant nesting areas. Their silhouettes cross the glowing sky. For a few moments, everyone waiting near the landing seems to notice. Then the birds disappear. And life continues. Small moments of beauty arrive unexpectedly. Then drift away. The rope keeper has learned not to chase them. Only to appreciate them when they appear. The final crossing arrives. Passengers step ashore. Cargo is unloaded. The ferry returns to its resting place. The rope keeper secures the ropes carefully. Checks every connection. Inspects everything one final time. The day is complete. Darkness begins gathering across the valley. Cooking fires glow warmly throughout the village. The smell of bread drifts through the air. Families prepare evening meals. Children grow sleepy. Workers stretch tired muscles. The rope keeper stands beside the river for a moment before leaving. The first stars appear overhead. Their reflections shimmer upon the water. The Nile continues flowing quietly through the deepening night. Tomorrow will bring another dawn. Another inspection. Another series of crossings. Another day shaped by the steady rhythm of the river. For now, however, there is only evening. Only the cool breeze. Only the whisper of water against the shore. And beneath the ancient sky, the rope keeper begins his walk home through the peaceful darkness of the Nile Valley. The following morning arrives beneath a sky so clear that the stars seem brighter than usual. The rope keeper wakes before dawn and notices the quiet immediately. Some mornings begin with distant sounds. A fisherman preparing a boat. A donkey moving in its enclosure. A voice drifting through the darkness. Today there is almost nothing. The village rests deeply. Even the wind appears to be sleeping. For a few moments he remains still, listening to the silence. Silence has its own texture. Its own presence. It is never completely empty. Within it live tiny sounds that often go unnoticed during busy hours. The faint settling of a roof beam. The rustle of cloth. The distant murmur of flowing water. The rope keeper has spent so many years waking before dawn that he has learned to appreciate these small details. Eventually he rises. His joints feel stiff. His shoulders carry the familiar weight of accumulated labor. His hands remain rough from rope and water. The signs of his work accompany him everywhere. Yet there is comfort in that familiarity. A life spent performing useful tasks creates its own kind of peace. Outside, the air feels wonderfully cool. The sky stretches overhead like a dark blanket scattered with stars. The rope keeper begins walking toward the river. The pathway lies quiet before him. Mud brick homes rest in shadow. Palm trees stand motionless. The entire village seems suspended between sleeping and waking. As he approaches the Nile, the scent of damp earth becomes stronger. The river always announces itself before it appears. The smell of water. The scent of reeds. The coolness carried by the breeze. These things arrive first. Then the river itself emerges from the darkness. Wide. Steady. Ancient. The rope keeper pauses at the shore. The water reflects the stars with remarkable clarity. Each ripple gently bends the reflected lights. The river appears to carry the heavens upon its surface. For a moment the scene feels endless. Water above. Water below. Stars everywhere. Then slowly, almost imperceptibly, dawn begins. A faint pale glow appears along the eastern horizon. The stars start fading. Birds awaken among the reeds. The world prepares itself for another day. The rope keeper begins his inspection. The routine remains unchanged. Hands moving along ropes. Eyes studying knots. Attention focused upon details. The work is repetitive. Yet repetition does not mean thoughtlessness. Every morning requires concentration. Every morning presents the possibility of discovering something new. Today everything appears sound. The ropes remain strong. The posts remain secure. The ferry rests exactly as it should. The rope keeper feels satisfied. Preparation completed. Another day ready to begin. Soon the first passengers arrive. A fisherman carrying empty baskets. A farmer transporting tools. A merchant leading a patient donkey loaded with supplies. The ferry begins its daily rhythm. The vessel pushes away from shore. Water ripples outward. Passengers gaze across the river. Some speak quietly. Others remain silent. The rope keeper has noticed that people often become reflective while crossing water. Perhaps it is the gentle movement. Perhaps it is the view. Perhaps it is simply the brief pause between one task and the next. Whatever the reason, ferry crossings often seem calmer than the roads leading to them. The morning unfolds gradually. Sunlight spreads across the valley. The river transforms into a ribbon of gold. Fields brighten. Palm leaves glow softly. The coolness of dawn lingers pleasantly. For now, the rope keeper moves steadily through his work. A basket secured. A knot adjusted. A passenger assisted. Years have refined his movements. Nothing feels rushed. Nothing feels wasted. Efficiency is not speed. Efficiency is knowing exactly what must be done. A group of young laborers arrives shortly after sunrise. Their energy stands in contrast to many older workers. They speak enthusiastically, laugh easily, move quickly. The rope keeper watches them board the ferry. He remembers seeing similar groups many years ago. Different faces, different names, the same youthful confidence. Time changes people, yet certain patterns remain. Every generation contains eager young workers beginning their lives. Every generation contains older workers carrying experience. The ferry carries them all equally. The morning becomes busier. Merchants transport goods. Farmers travel to fields. Craftsmen move materials between villages. The landing fills with activity. Voices rise and fall like waves. Children point toward boats. Donkeys wait patiently. The rope keeper remains at the center of it all. Not as a leader. Not as an important official. Simply as a dependable presence. Someone who ensures the crossing continues smoothly. Many people depend upon workers whose names they barely know. The rope keeper understands this. And he does not mind. Reliability matters more than recognition. As the sun climbs higher, warmth begins spreading across the valley. The cool air retreats. Shadows shorten. Travelers seek shade while waiting for crossings. The rope keeper drinks from a clay water jar. Its contents remain refreshingly cool. Nearby, several women discuss preparations for an upcoming family gathering. Their conversation drifts through the air while they wait. The rope keeper hears fragments. Food being prepared. Relatives expected to arrive. Sleeping arrangements for visitors. Such gatherings require planning. Ancient life often revolves around family. Not just immediate family. Large networks of relatives connected through marriage, friendship, and shared history. People rely upon one another. Especially during difficult times. The ferry helps maintain those connections. A simple crossing can bring families together. Near mid-morning, a craftsman boards carrying beautifully woven baskets. The rope keeper admires them briefly. The weaving is precise. The patterns are even. Years of skill are visible in every strand. He often notices craftsmanship. Perhaps because ropes themselves require careful weaving. People who work with their hands tend to recognize good work in others. The baskets disappear across the river. Soon new passengers replace them. The day continues. Steady as ever. By midday, the heat becomes noticeable. The sun hangs high overhead. The river reflects brilliant light. The air feels heavy. Many travelers pause beneath shelters before continuing their journeys. The rope keeper joins them briefly. A simple meal waits in a cloth bundle. Bread. A few dates. Water. Nothing elaborate. Yet after hours of labor, it feels satisfying. Nearby, an elderly farmer sits quietly eating his own meal. Neither man speaks much. Conversation is not always necessary. Shared silence can feel comfortable too. Especially among people accustomed to hard work. The afternoon arrives slowly. The hottest hours stretch across the valley. Movement decreases. Activity slows. The ferry continues operating, though with fewer passengers. A messenger crosses carrying rolled documents. A shepherd guides several goats aboard. A merchant transports jars of oil. Small journeys continue despite the heat. Life never fully pauses. The rope keeper notices a slight breeze arriving from the south. The change is subtle, yet welcome. The air feels a little cooler. The river surface develops tiny ripples. Palm leaves begin moving gently. Everyone seems grateful. The afternoon becomes easier to endure. As the hours pass, the rope keeper reflects quietly upon how much of his life has been spent beside this river. Not in words. Not in detailed memories. Simply in a general awareness. Thousands of mornings. Thousands of crossings. Thousands of sunsets. The Nile has been present through all of them. The river has watched children grow into adults. Has watched buildings rise and crumble. Has watched entire generations come and go. Its patience seems endless. The thought feels comforting rather than sad. Everything changes. That is simply the nature of life. The river changes too. Yet somehow it also remains. The afternoon gradually softens. Shadows lengthen. Birds become active once more. Travelers return in greater numbers. The landing grows busy. Workers head home from fields. Craftsmen finish their daily tasks. Families gather belongings and begin evening journeys. The rope keeper moves steadily through the growing activity. Fatigue settles into his muscles. His feet feel heavy. His shoulders ache. Still, the sight of evening approaching lifts his spirits. The worst heat has passed. The day is winding toward rest. Golden sunlight spreads across the valley. The Nile glows like polished bronze. Palm trees cast long shadows over dusty pathways. Children laugh while waiting for the ferry. A dog wanders near the landing. Smoke rises from distant cooking fires. The scent of bread drifts through the air. Everything feels familiar. Comfortably familiar. The final crossings begin. Passengers board quietly. Most appear tired. Many have spent the entire day working beneath the sun. The rope keeper understands. His own body feels the same. Yet there is satisfaction in shared effort. The entire village has spent another day sustaining itself. Growing food. Building structures. Repairing tools. Transporting goods. Performing countless necessary tasks. Now evening offers its reward. Rest. The final passenger steps ashore. The ferry returns to its resting place. The rope keeper secures the ropes carefully. Every knot is checked. Every line inspected. Tomorrow's work begins with today's preparation. The routine remains unchanged. And because it remains unchanged, it can be trusted. Darkness settles across the Nile Valley. The first stars appear overhead. The river grows quiet once more. The rope keeper stands beside the shore for a final moment. A cool breeze touches his face. The water whispers softly against the landing. Across the river, scattered lamps glow in distant homes. Families gather around evening meals. Children drift toward sleep. The village settles into night. At last the rope keeper turns toward home, leaving the ferry secured beneath the stars while the great Nile continues its timeless journey through the peaceful darkness. The next morning begins with the distant sound of geese somewhere along the riverbank. Their calls drift through the darkness before fading once again into silence. The rope keeper opens his eyes and listens. For a moment he is unsure how far away the birds might be. Sound travels differently before dawn. The cool air seems to carry it farther. A voice can seem closer. A boat can seem farther away. The Nile Valley often feels larger during these quiet hours. The rope keeper sits up slowly. The familiar stiffness greets him as always. His muscles carry the memory of yesterday's work, and the work of the day before, and the work of countless years before that. Physical labor leaves its traces. Not all at once, but gradually. Like water smoothing a stone. The changes arrive slowly enough that they are rarely noticed. Until one morning a man realizes he rises a little more carefully than he once did. Outside, the stars remain bright. The sky is clear. The air feels cool against his skin. He steps into the sleeping village and begins the familiar walk toward the river. Most homes remain dark. The day has not yet started for the majority of people. Only a few workers move through the pre-dawn darkness. A baker carrying fuel. A fisherman transporting nets. A servant making an early journey to collect water. Their paths briefly cross. A greeting is exchanged. Then each continues toward their own responsibilities. The rope keeper reaches the Nile just as a thin band of silver appears above the eastern horizon. The river looks peaceful. Its surface moves with quiet confidence. Small ripples spread outward from unseen fish. Mist hangs low over certain sections of water. The sight feels unchanged from countless mornings before. Yet somehow it never becomes dull. Perhaps because the river itself is never truly the same. The water passing by today is not the water that passed yesterday. The current constantly renews itself. The rope keeper stands for a moment and watches. These few moments before work begins often feel valuable. Not because he is resting. Not because he is avoiding labor. Simply because they allow him to observe. The ancient world moves slowly enough that observation becomes part of daily life. There is time to notice birds. Time to notice clouds. Time to notice the changing color of water. Such things rarely seem important. Yet they quietly shape a person's experience of the world. Eventually he begins his inspection. The ropes appear strong. The fibers feel rough beneath his hands. The knots remain secure. The ferry waits patiently beside the landing. Everything is ready. As the eastern sky brightens, birds emerge from the reeds. Their calls spread across the valley. One voice becomes many. Soon the riverbank is alive with sound. The day awakens gradually. Never suddenly. Never all at once. The first passengers arrive shortly after sunrise. A farmer carrying irrigation tools. A merchant transporting baskets of onions. An elderly woman traveling to visit relatives across the river. The ferry begins operating. Water ripples against the hull. The vessel glides away from shore. The familiar rhythm returns. Crossing after crossing. Journey after journey. The rope keeper settles naturally into his work. The morning remains cool and pleasant. Sunlight spreads across the fields. The green strips of farmland beside the Nile glow brightly. Workers can already be seen moving among crops. From a distance they appear small. Tiny figures crossing the landscape. Yet each one is carrying out tasks that matter deeply. Planting. Harvesting. Repairing. Building. The rope keeper often thinks about how much work surrounds him. Every object has passed through someone's hands. Every loaf of bread. Every basket. Every piece of linen. Every boat. Nothing appears by itself. Everything requires effort. The morning grows busier. More passengers arrive. A potter transporting newly fired vessels. Several shepherds moving animals across the river. A carpenter carrying carefully shaped pieces of wood. The landing fills with activity. Voices drift through the air. Children ask questions. Merchants discuss prices. Farmers discuss water levels. The rope keeper hears fragments of dozens of conversations. Most disappear from memory almost immediately. Yet together they create the sound of ordinary life. A sound far more common than the stories preserved by scribes. Most people spend their lives discussing practical things. Food. Weather. Family. Work. The concerns of daily living. These concerns rarely become history. Yet they form the foundation beneath everything else. Near mid-morning, a fisherman arrives with a particularly successful catch. Several baskets are filled with fish. Their scales shimmer brightly in the sunlight. The fisherman appears pleased. Not excited. Simply satisfied. A good night's work has produced results. The rope keeper helps arrange the baskets aboard the ferry. The smell of river water and fresh fish briefly fills the air. Soon the fisherman is crossing toward the market. Another small success story traveling quietly through the valley. The sun climbs higher. Warmth spreads across the landscape. Shadows begin shrinking. Workers seek water more frequently. The rope keeper pauses briefly to drink from a clay jar. The cool water feels refreshing. Nearby, a group of young workers discusses plans for repairing part of a storage building. Their conversation is practical. Measurements. Materials. Labor. Ancient life depends heavily upon maintenance. Buildings require care. Tools require care. Boats require care. The rope keeper understands this better than most. His entire profession revolves around preventing problems before they appear. By midday, the heat settles firmly over the valley. The air grows heavier. Movement slows. Even conversations seem softer. People conserve energy. The rope keeper finds shade beneath a woven shelter. Its shadow is narrow but welcome. Several travelers rest nearby while waiting for crossings. No one speaks much. The heat encourages silence. Instead, people focus on eating simple meals and drinking water. Bread. Dates. Vegetables. Occasionally fish. The foods are familiar. Reliable. The same foods that have sustained generations beside the Nile. The rope keeper unwraps his own meal. Nothing elaborate. Yet entirely satisfying. The afternoon arrives slowly. The river reflects brilliant sunlight. The landscape seems almost motionless beneath the heat. A shepherd boards the ferry with several goats. The animals seem reluctant at first. One pauses near the edge of the landing. Another pulls gently against its rope. Eventually they board. The crossing proceeds smoothly. Several passengers smile quietly at the familiar challenge. Animals have their own opinions about travel. The rope keeper has learned this through years of observation. Donkeys. Goats. Sheep. Each behaves differently. Each requires patience. Patience solves many problems beside the river. The afternoon continues. Hours drift past. The ferry moves steadily. Back and forth. Back and forth. The repetition feels almost like breathing. The rope keeper rarely thinks about individual crossings anymore. Instead, he experiences the flow of the day itself. The movement of people. The changing position of the sun. The gradual transition from morning to evening. Life beside the Nile often feels cyclical rather than linear. Everything returns. Dawn returns. Heat returns. Evening returns. The river continues. As the hottest hours begin to fade, a breeze arrives from across the water. The change is immediate. Palm leaves stir. Travelers straighten their backs. Birds emerge from shaded areas. The entire valley seems grateful. The rope keeper certainly is. The cooler air eases the weight of fatigue. Work becomes more comfortable. The evening rush soon begins. Workers return from fields. Craftsmen close workshops. Families complete journeys delayed during midday heat. The landing grows lively once more. Voices rise. Children laugh. Donkeys carry supplies home. The ferry becomes busy. The rope keeper moves steadily from task to task. Helping passengers. Checking ropes. Securing cargo. His movements remain calm despite the activity. Years of experience have taught him that calmness saves energy. There is no need to hurry. The river has its own pace. The best workers learn to move with it. Golden sunlight spreads across the Nile. The water glows softly. Long shadows stretch across the riverbank. The evening air carries the scent of cooking fires. Somewhere nearby, fresh bread is baking. The smell drifts through the village. Warm. Comforting. Familiar. The rope keeper feels hunger stir slightly. Soon he will return home. Soon the day's labor will be finished. The thought feels pleasant. Not because he dislikes his work, but because rest always feels sweetest after effort. The final crossings arrive. Passengers step ashore. Cargo is unloaded. The ferry returns to its resting place. The rope keeper secures every rope carefully. Checks every knot. Inspects every connection. The routine remains unchanged. And that consistency provides reassurance. Everything is ready for tomorrow. Darkness begins spreading across the valley. The sky deepens from gold to purple. Then from purple to deep blue. Stars appear one by one overhead. The river reflects them faintly. The village settles into evening. Families gather. Meals are shared. Children grow sleepy. Workers stretch tired muscles. The rope keeper stands beside the Nile for a final moment before leaving. A gentle breeze moves across the water. The sound of the current remains soft and steady. Just as it was yesterday. Just as it will be tomorrow. Then he turns toward home, walking slowly through the warm glow of evening lamps while the ancient river continues flowing silently beneath the stars. Now the week has gently come to rest. The rope keeper has finished another long series of mornings beside the river. Another collection of quiet dawns. Another collection of ferry crossings. Another collection of evenings filled with warm light and drifting smoke from cooking fires. Nothing remarkable has happened. No great battle has been fought. No monument has been raised. No king has passed through the village. And yet, like countless ordinary weeks before it, this one has mattered. The Nile continues flowing beneath the stars. The ferry rests quietly at its landing. The ropes are secured for the night. The wooden posts stand firm beside the shore. Everything waits peacefully for another sunrise that no longer needs to be described. The village has grown silent. The last conversations have faded. The last cooking fires burn low. Families sleep behind mud brick walls. Children dream beneath woven blankets. Farmers rest tired backs. Fishermen rest tired arms. Craftsmen rest tired hands. And the rope keeper sleeps among them. Outside, moonlight settles gently across the Nile Valley. The river reflects pale silver light. Palm trees sway softly in the night breeze. Reeds whisper at the water's edge. A distant bird calls once. Then silence returns. The great river moves onward through darkness. Past fields resting beneath the stars. Past sleeping villages. Past quiet boats tied to wooden posts. Its waters continue their endless journey, just as they have for generations beyond counting. The rope keeper no longer watches. The ferry no longer moves. The roads are empty. The workshops are still. The ovens have cooled. The day's labor has dissolved into memory. Only the peaceful sounds of the night remain. The gentle murmur of water. The soft movement of wind. The quiet breathing of a sleeping world. And as the stars slowly drift across the sky above ancient Egypt, the village settles deeper into rest. The Nile continues flowing. The moon continues shining. The darkness grows calm and comfortable. Everything becomes slower, quieter, softer, until there is only the river, only the night, only the distant whisper of water moving through the ancient world. And beneath those timeless stars, beside the patient Nile, sleep comes gently at last.